They really put me in B tier.
Judgment.
Outsider's probably a character that is definitely been overlooked in Duet Night Abyss, notably due to him being, well, a weapon-focused unit. And one of the biggest reputations that weapons have had in Duet Night Abyss is that they just generally haven't been too strong. And I will say, for the majority of weapons there are in this game, I would agree. Most weapons are just engines to either activate your character abilities or simply stat sticks. However, there is one particular weapon type that stands heads above the rest, and that of course is the katana, most notably the Mamiji Iteki. And with this, you are able to deal some real crazy damage with Outsider. The whole entire rest of the build will be making sure that you can use this as much as you possibly can. So without further ado, we're going to be getting straight into Outsider. So one of the first things to note about Outsider are his abilities. Now I'm going to keep this brief. The Stealthy Prowl right here is going to largely be useless to level up. You shouldn't really take this any further than a level 6. The only thing that you're going to be getting out of it is duration. When you're in combat, you are never going to be in this for more than half a second. When you're out of combat, it also doesn't cost nearly enough sanity to warrant putting that much investment into this skill, so you can just ignore this like level and get outright, which means if you're in the mood for saving materials, you only have to level up the buff and the passive. So the buff right here is going to be the main engine that Outsider is going to employ. When you activate it, it'll retract all Fang Spikes and allow you to enter the Relentless Hunt state, and for each Fang Spike retracted, Outsider will lose HP and will be granted Ultra Shield, and while in this state, Outsider will not be able to receive any healing whatsoever. Additionally, he will be immune to a hit stun, gain weapon attack speed boost, and resolve boost. Any healing received will be converted into an equivalent amount of Ultra Shield, so healers will still be useful for Outsider. Now, as we can see right here, we've got the base duration, which is going to be rather short, but each Fang Spike will also increase the duration for it up to a maximum of 50 seconds. And each Fang Spike will reduce Outsider's HP by 10%, so to get the max boost of Resolve, you would only need about 8 on the field, but if you do want to be safe, you can put 10 or more. And the attack speed and Resolve will be scaling with levels. Mine is actually only at level 8, and the same thing with my passive right here. And the passive essentially means whenever you take damage, Outsider will generate one Fang Spike to attack the damage dealer, and it can only be triggered once per second, and the Fang Spikes will fly towards a target, dealing damage and inflicting the debuff Throat Cutter on them. And only a maximum of 10 Fang Spikes can exist on the field at a time, so you can keep that in mind for the buff right here. Using the Stealthy Prowl will generate Fang Spikes, but the scaling for it is on the passive and not on the buff skill itself. Finally, you have the passive right here, Ravenous Gnaw. When not in the Relentless Hunt state, there is a chance to generate one Fang Spike to attack the target when dealing damage with a melee weapon, and it can only be triggered once per second with a trigger probability of 20. And this can actually get some use if you really want to. And for some of the bossing scenarios that I'll show later, you'll see why it can be useful. Especially because it can help you keep the Fang for Fang active, which is a very significant damage increase of 46% at skill level 8, with obviously the +2 for the Intron, and it would be about 54% at skill level 10. So my Outsider still has some room to grow, and that will also go for some of his supports as well. Moving on to the Introns, his first Intron is going to be very important because it's going to increase the crit chance of your weapons by 60% for 24 seconds after exiting stealth. So even though you don't want to really care about leveling up the skill, you still want to use it in your rotations to spawn the Fang Spikes and to activate the Intron 1 before you deal your big damage bursts. And then there's the Intron 2. This one's not really going to be too useful for the build, but basically whenever a Fang for Fang or Ravenous Gnaw generate a Fang Spike, it'll have a 50% chance to generate an additional one. It's not going to really do too much. Intron 3 and 5 are going to be skill level ups. Intron 4 is kind of pointless for combat. Basically, when in the stealth state, you'll get increased movement speed. You can use this for like some traversal sections, especially because since you don't have the polearm, you won't have access to the piercing ascent movement. So this can help Outsider keep up a bit more with that 35% movement speed increase, which is pretty significant for traversal. And finally, you've got Introns 6, and this states whenever you're in the Relentless Hunt state, Outsider will deal additional animo damage by 20%. This is just gonna increase his damage by quite a bit, especially since all of his damage is weapon damage. So you could just think of this as another 20% final multiplier on Outsider's damage. We're gonna be moving into the Demon Wedges. A lot of you may be struggling with your Outsider damage. I can't hit my damage! 5 fucking resolves. Yeah, that's really it when it comes to the Outsider build. You put on Hunt down because you're doing primarily weapon damage regardless. You put on Midnight Sun because that animo attack percent is worth the entire world. So if you do equip it right there, you can see that's gonna be a pretty significant loss in your attack, especially because you're gonna be losing out on some of that skill duration, which is gonna be good for the Fang for Fang. And we also have a duel right here, but you may be able to swap out a duel for another Blaze Resolve. Mine is maxed out, so it's gonna be a bit better, most likely, compared to the Blaze Resolves that I have currently because they're only +5. And of course we have Sidestep because that is just going to be the best for on-fielding. Now moving on to Outspicer's weapons, we've got the Momiji Iteki. Like I mentioned before, this is going to be the main engine for dealing your damage with Outsider, and you may think that you will run into some problems with like some flying enemies, but with how we're going to gear our supports, you will not have to worry about that one single bit. So this is the setup that I'm going to recommend on the Momiji Iteki. We've got Celerity, obviously for the attack speed, Impetus Focus, Crit Chance Attack Percent, Rage Trammel, Edge, Impetus for more attack, Fortune, which is going to be exceptionally good for bossing and pretty good for mobbing as well. And basically what this means is that you'll gain 2 combo per weapon hit instead of just 1, so that is really good because we are doing a charge attack build with Crescent Flurry. This is going to double the damage of the charge attack as well as transforming it into a much more powerful version. And the final wedge I'm going to recommend is going to be Focus, which is going to be a crit chance increase, which is going to bring the crit chance to 65.78, and of course with Outsider's buff, that's going to be based off of the base crit chance. So we're probably going to be running around somewhere with 80 to 90% crit chance. And while you could put on something like a Rage for more crit damage, we already have more than enough crit damage from the passive and the other wedges. I don't think it would be that big of a difference compared to the additional crit rate. Now, the other part of its passive is going to be increasing the damage dealt by 18%, with an additional 18% increase per combo level, and that's going to function so well with the charge attacks because, if you do not know regarding melee weapons, the damage of your charge attack will be increased based on the current combo level. So stacking that up higher will naturally allow you to deal much more damage with your charge attacks compared to, you know, just spamming them out. Now, there is actually potential for another weapon to be better than the Momiji Iteki, and that is the Sacred Favor. Now, I will say the passive does seem to be kind of worse. You're getting a character attack increase instead of a damage dealt increase, but you do get slightly more crit damage, but it's applied when you use a charge attack. But since that is the primary way we're dealing our damage, that doesn't really matter regardless. The main thing about it is, of course, the fact that it's going to be doing spike attack instead of slash attack. And for those of you who do not know, the spike attack bonus effect will increase the damage dealt to target's HP by 1.5 times, and this will stack on top of all of your other damage effects multiplicatively. So it certainly has some extra potential there when compared to the Momiji Iteki, but I'm not really sure if it's going to really be able to compete at like a Smelt 0 compared to a Smelt 5 Momiji Iteki. So this might be a situation where we have to either wait for it to be put into the Covert Commission shop, or, you know, maybe somebody could just grind it out. Now, when it comes to the ranged weapon, we are going to be using Rend Husk for the character attack percent. This is basically just going to be the only thing that we can get from the Covert Commission shop that can benefit the sword, but there is a weapon from the weeklies, which is going to be the Sacrosanct Decree, which will increase your melee weapon damage by 35% when triggering a bonus effect. And this will be for 12 seconds, so you'd want to get your entire damage combo out in that 12 seconds. So it's definitely going to be a more like higher skill involvement and maybe a much tighter rotation because of that 12-second timer, which unfortunately can't get increased by the Introns, but the damage increase is going to be significantly better when compared to just the attack increase of Rend Husk. So if you're not looking to complicate your gameplay too much, then Rend Husk, even if it will be less damage, may be the weapon for you. Now, when it comes to support characters for Outsider, Fina is going to be the best option for him. Not only is she going to provide penetration, which is going to be an extremely good damage multiplier, but she's also going to provide the additional damage of 4 different elements, which is going to stack up to a very high degree, as well as the 45% damage boost from Tailweaver's Quill. Though, unfortunately, he won't be able to make use of her unique passive, which will be a weapon damage boost for characters who are proficient in swords and assault rifles. So Cloudsider might not be Fina's favorite when it comes to her particular buffs. Another nice thing that Fina will be able to provide Outsider is, of course, going to be the Prismatic Neon Demon Wedge, which will be able to increase his crit chance even further. No matter what support you're running on, you're always going to want to have at least one of them running Surge. It doesn't stack, so you only need one on them, and also use one Serenity on one support and an Uplift on the other. The other supports for him are going to be Truffle and Filbert. This is probably going to be the second best support for him, and it comes down to the fact that, well, one, she's going to be a lot more consistent because she will be proccing that healing from Trotter's Trot Trot, so you won't have to worry about that too much, and it is going to be a massive damage increase of 75%. She will be able to buff him using the Resolve boost right here, and also will be able to buff him even further by stacking more Resolve with the Turbulent Cyclone. Now, the other supports you may want to consider, the first, of course, is going to be the Lumino MC, and this may be a bit better when it comes to the weekly katana if that winds up out-damaging it, because she will actually be able to ground outsize her extra trigger probability. Of course, the weapon damage increases that she'll be able to provide, being the 8% from here and the 43% here, are not going to be that much lower compared to Truffle's damage boosts, but you will be missing out on the resolve that Truffle will give, so she definitely will fall a bit further behind on like the damage percent increases, though her Intron 6 may allow her to catch up with some extra crit chance, maybe allowing Outsider to build for more crit damage on his weapons instead. But obviously the Prismatic Neon is also going to be available on Fina, so that is not something that's going to be unique on the Lumino MC that they'll be able to uniquely take advantage of. And the final support to consider for Outsider is actually going to be somebody who's not really considered a support, but Lady Nightfall, and that is because if you're running into a situation where you need to be using your charge attacks against enemies, Lady Nightfall may be able to help you by grouping them together. Of course, you will be taking the damage hit, so that is something that you want to keep in mind. So if you are running into a situation like that, another thing you may want to consider instead of Nightfall may be equipping Threshold instead of a wedge like Focus or one of the attack percent wedges, because that'll massively increase your attack range and making it so that you can attack a lot more enemies, and it will actually make your charge attacks slightly more consistent against bosses if you're not able to aim them well. So that is something else to consider if you need additional assistance in mobbing. And when it comes to weapons for your supports, the Dreamweaver's Feather is of course going to be the best option for Fina, giving you the skill range as well as giving you the massive attacks percent buff for the entire team. It doesn't really get much better than this. And for your other support, you're going to want to run either Entropic Singularity or Destructo for when it comes to boss damage. And these are the wedges that I run on my Destructo. It may not be the best. There might be a better one out there than this. This is just what's working for me right now. And when it comes to the Entropic Singularity, this is the wedge setup that I run on it as well. And finally, of course, we're going to talk about the Geniemon. So obviously the Animelf is going to be far and above the best Geniemon for Mudsider, because it will be buffing his resolve as well as making it so that you get a bit more overshield from this passive right here, and increasing the animo attack and the effect of all the wedges that he has equipped. But obviously not everybody's going to have the Battle Pass, so I will be able to recommend some alternate options. Now, the Dandymeow is going to be another option, but it won't really be able to benefit him significantly when it comes to the damage. The animo attack percent is of course going to be good, as well as the Phoenix boost from that as well, but you're only giving you some healing as well as some defense, so it's not going to be that great. So you may want to consider some other options, even if it's a smaller amount, but there aren't really any other ones of significant note that I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe the driplet for the attack percent. I don't think it's going to be much more useful than the defense shred though. So obviously knowing how to build Outhouse is only part of the battle. You're also going to want to know how to play him. We're going to be starting out with a boss showcase. Now Sybil is going to be a boss that I'm going to pick because she is a bit important for something that you're going to want to know about the charge attacks, and that's going to be the fact that you're going to need to position them well. So right now I'm just going to go in without a proper team for damage to kind of showcase this. So if you just go in with the charge attacks, you may walk into a situation where you kind of like don't hit the boss and entirely miss. So it can really depend on like where you aim it as well as where the boss goes, because a smaller boss like Sybil, you could wind up either whiffing the charge attack, either not hitting her, or you could get the charge attack hit and then the charge attack itself could entirely miss the boss, either because they move or because you just don't position it well. So the charge attack will actually aim where you move in direction, so you will want to move your character using your movement keys in the direction of the boss. Otherwise, it will just go wherever you were aiming prior, which if it was away from the boss, but you still activate it, obviously you're not going to hit it. Obviously, like right here, if I aim at her, and okay, thank you. So obviously, if I aim at her and then hold S, I will actually go backwards instead of going the normal forwards that I would just simply be facing. But obviously, that is only a small part of the puzzle, because the other part of the puzzle is just going to be doing all the damage. Now, of course, going into it with the proper team, you're only going to really want one character on the Destructo or the Entropic Singularity, because that will be more than enough time for you to build up your combo for that powerful charge attack, because we have to stack up the motivation that we need. So I like to start out with a skill just to activate the Fang for Fang, as well as give me the crit rate, and we're just going to be attacking as much as we can before we get that S-rank combo, and then we're just going to go straight into it with a charge attack, which will be more than enough to take out the boss. Maybe with a second charge attack of like B rank. Okay, we didn't even need it. We got it done with normals. And that was actually a pretty slow average run. So obviously you can just go full aggro, use spamming out B rank combos and A rank combos instead of waiting for the boss to get broken. And you'll start by just spamming up the skill, getting your health reduction already, and just stacking up into like A rank and B rank combos, because that's going to be more than enough damage in order to take out the boss with just a few charge attacks. And I didn't even activate the Geniemon skill, so I didn't even have the resolve buff right there either. So as you can see, it doesn't really make a massive difference whether you're attacking the boss with its stance completely eradicated, or if you're just going full aggro into it. And of course, because of the stance reducing weapons like the Destructo, we won't have to worry about bosses that will fly, such as the Eclosioneer, because when they go up in the air in their whole like butterfly mode, they'll just get shot down. But of course, showing that Outsider actually deals some pretty good damage against bosses is only part of the thing. His performance in Immersive Theater is going to be important, because mobbing is the other half of the puzzle when it comes to combat in this game. And she's really just spamming that shit out. Outsider's health is low, deploying 5,000 Gilberts. So, like usual, we just get our ult started and immediately just get to eradicating all of these legs. So we're just gonna go through it as fast as we possibly can, because speed is the only thing that matters. And we're gonna get A rank, and that's gonna be more than enough damage. This guy's already cooked. Alright, and so we're just gonna defeat all of the enemies that spawn around here. Mobbing phase is just a mobbing phase as usual. And I'm getting thrashed around. So I'm going to attempt to let Truffle take out the boss stance bar as much as she can. Hopefully taking out the crystal pile before he decides to go into his immunity phase. That is really the only thing. We're gonna have more than enough damage regardless of like what combo we use. We don't even need it. We don't even need it. So that's how you would definitely want it to be done a lot better. And that is Snout Sizer. Definitely a really potent character, especially if you invest in him correctly, putting the right weapons as well as the right level investment on all of them. The way I kind of see this, it's basically the same level of investment that I put in my other characters, giving them max out skill damage, weapons like this. And when it comes to the Demon Wedges here, do not be intimidated by them, because these are going to be some of the easiest Demon Wedges that you will ever be able to rank up in the game. Now, they're going to cost the same amount of Carmine Globules as all of the other Demon Wedges, so you won't really be skimping out on that cost at all. However, what they're not going to cost is secret letter clues, because unlike character wedges, all of these blueprints are going to be available to earn through the Nachtdeutscher manual, and you'll be able to get them as a part of the random drops over here in both the level 70 and the level 80. And that means while you're getting your wings inspo, while you're getting your surges, and while you're getting your duels, you'll be getting more than enough blueprints for all these. And let me tell you, you will be getting more than enough blueprints for all of these. I have more than enough to even craft multiple plus 10s on some of these. It's actually kind of nuts. And the other half of that equation is, of course, the purple wedges, which you will also be getting as you're getting every single other wedge in the game. The Sphinx Spheres, I'll be there. Your character wedges, I'll be there. Even the other weapon wedges, I'll be there. On that front, they are going to be some of the easiest wedges to level up, because you will literally be getting them, whether you like them or not. The only ones that you're going to have to go out of your way to obtain are going to be the random drop blue ones, as well as the celerity. So you'll be getting a handful of the crushers, penetrations, and edges as you increase your celerities, and you'll also get a little bit when you're going for your fold over for your ranged weapons. These ones, I definitely do not recommend grinding out, at least currently. You're probably gonna have a much better time investing in your character wedges a bit more, especially for Outsider, because you're not really going to be seeing a major difference maximizing your edging. But obviously, I already knew that Smack Snyder was going to be a strong character even before Fina. Fina just brought him to an even higher level than before. But with that all out of the way, thank you all so much for watching the video. If you are enjoying my coverage of Duet Night Abyss and would like to see more, be sure to subscribe to the channel so that you never miss a single video covering this game. And I would like to hear your thoughts about Boss Slicer down in the comments below, whether you were always a believer, or if you finally saw the light of this guy when I showcased him on some of my recent videos. Regardless of your position on this fine fellow right here, I'm gonna have to thank you all again so much for watching, and as always, I will see you all next time.